Could the film Meg magically change the lives of minorities for the better in real life? Was it fair to give a redemptive arc to a Weinstein-like casting couch agent? And overall, was Murphy's alternate history brilliant or lame? Hi, I'm Janet. Let's figure it out. It shows how to overcome isms. Hollywood series creator Ryan Murphey decided to rewrite history and show what could have happened if movie makers had embraced racial and sexual diversity much earlier. According to him, the public would follow their lead because the entertainment industry has always been a trendsetter. So, in the series, we see a handful of talented men and women who come together to change the world. They allow people who have always been sidelined to come to the forefront and show their talents. As a result, all conflicts melt away. All races and sexualities are widely accepted, and the world becomes a much better place. What if this kind of breakthrough had come earlier? Would we be completely equal if Meg or a similar film was released in the 1940s? Can one film actually change all the norms? Let's take a look at it from a realistic point of view. They release one film that's written by a black gay man that shows a black woman in the lead role. And as if with a wave of a magic wand, everyone suddenly becomes so incredibly accepting. Like, seriously? If one film could help everyone embrace diversity, why hasn't it happened? If only it was so easy. In real life, Miyoshi Umeki became the first Asian American woman to win for Best Supporting Actress back in 1957. But it didn't immediately result in other Asian Americans receiving more significant roles. Similarly, even after Halle Berry became the first African American woman to get an Oscar for Best Actress in 2002, the representation of African Americans in Hollywood didn't skyrocket. People are still marginalized. Until today, we still celebrate such movies as Crazy Rich Asians, Black Panther, or Wonder Woman because they show the results of hard-won fights for equality. They're a big deal because these problems still exist. Sure, the entertainment industry can set trends, but showing that a single movie can suddenly change social norms oversimplifies racism and other complex real-life issues. But at least it looks good. Hollywood is visually impeccable. The actors are beautiful, and the costumes are to die for. According to Samara Weaving, who played Claire, most of these clothes were actually from the 40s. They got their stunning dresses and high-waisted suits from warehouses and vintage shops, and only a few pieces were made from scratch. It wasn't just the clothes, though. The entire image of all the characters was impeccable and authentic. The hair, the makeup, it all made the cast look absolutely amazing. Their looks at the Academy Awards ceremony are a great example of how a period piece should be done. The music in the show was also chosen very carefully, and the set design was immaculate. Old model cars, roads with little to no traffic, the Ace Studio Gate that reminds us of Paramount, the apartment sets. It all perfectly captures the feel and look of Hollywood's golden age. This authenticity helps us believe in Murphy's alternate history and allows us to accept that it could have actually happened. The character development is poor. On the other hand, when you look beyond the beautiful picture, you can't help but notice that the show desperately lacks details. Its simplistic view reduces everything to nothing but shapes. Characters don't speak like real people, and they lose their individuality. Rather, they look like avatars of their race, sexuality, or gender. What's more, they lack independent development. For example, what do we know about Camille, except that she's a beautiful and talented young lady who wants to make it big in Hollywood? Plus, Avis and her daughter Claire are briefly revealed as Jewish, but that aspect never gets developed further, and they are shown as struggling simply because of gender stereotypes. Since the series takes place right after World War II and the Holocaust, their racial identity needed much more attention. On top of it all, the development of certain characters is laughable. In Murphy's Hollywood, everyone is nice and noble. Camille gets the lead role Claire wanted so much, but it doesn't make Claire angry or even disappointed. Jack's wife immediately forgives the woman who's been sleeping with her husband for a decade. Gas station pimp Ernie has a heart of gold and loves everyone. Even the casting couch agent, Henry Willson, gets his redemption arc, becomes a sweet guy who realizes his mistakes, and, surprise, makes a romantic movie about gays. Actually, this man's story deserves a more detailed analysis, so stay tuned. The series made lives better. Ryan Murphy says that the main goal of his show was to reveal how the world would be if gender, race, and sexual orientation didn't define the career of Golden Age actors. A black gay screenwriter writes a screenplay and receives an Oscar for it. A woman of color wins a Best Actress award at a time when casting a black person in a lead role was some sort of taboo, and the only part an African-American woman could get was as a maid. Rock Hudson comes out as gay and has a successful career. May Wong, who's always been rejected and given only stereotypical roles, comes back to acting and makes history. And his studio boss becomes brave enough to change the industry and the world forever. All these people aren't afraid to be the first ones to do the right things. But are they so good after all? The huge problem with Jim Parsons' character. This is probably the most serious issue with Murphy's Hollywood, especially considering that we now live in the post-Weinstein era. In real life, Jim Parsons' Henry Willson was a predator who used his power to make aspiring actors sleep with him in exchange for roles. When his sexuality became public, most of his clients left him because they didn't want to be associated with a gay talent agent. Gradually, Willson sank into oblivion, and at the end of his life, he was alone, poor, addicted, and paranoid. So it seems that real life punished this man. But Murphy had a different plan for him. In the show, Willson is magically redeemed, despite all the psychological trauma he caused young, hopeful actors. And what's more, in Murphy's Hollywood, it looks like getting professional gains out of personal relationships is a good thing. Jack's sexual relationship with Avis results in him getting a lead role. Raymond changes the script to cast his girlfriend in a film. Rock also becomes involved in it because he's the scriptwriter's boyfriend. And Ernie is just a charming matchmaker who uses his gas station brothel to bring people together. Sounds kinda sick, right? But on the other hand, the 20th Century Academy Awards ceremony was a tearjerker. It was one of the boldest and most beautiful things shown in the series. Ryan Murphy said that while filming it, the entire crew was in tears. It was very emotional to have these people get justice and to be seen and to have acceptance, which everybody should have and want, he said to The Hollywood Reporter. Despite all the protests and troubles, Meg becomes a box office hit and an Academy Award sensation. Most of the people involved in making it take home Oscars. I don't know how you felt watching that last episode, but it's very tearful, Murphy said. You realize how much of an injustice it was and how great it feels to right the wrong. Yeah, it must have felt so good to give all these people the happy ending they deserved. But actually, it creates another problem. The alternate history overwrites the real-life trailblazers. To understand the issue, you should keep in mind that when one rewrites history, they never start with an empty page. There's always some kind of base to what a movie maker is doing, and it's important to remember what actually affected the world at the time. In the late 1940s, one of the most vital issues was antisemitism. The actual Oscar winner in 1948 was Gentleman's Agreement, a movie that took on this problem, reflecting the state of affairs. Starring Golden Age legend Gregory Peck, it was a very important film in the post-war era, and it deserved the attention it received, as well as its 8 Oscar nominations. This groundbreaking movie won 3 awards back then: Best Picture, Best Supporting Actress, and Best Director, and became a box office hit. However, all traces of it were erased in Murphy's alternate story, as well as the traces of another film, Crossfire, that also dealt with anti-Semitism, and which received 5 Oscar nominations that year. But in Murphy's Hollywood, there's no mention of it. On the other hand, the series actually had another goal: an inspiration to all of us. Despite all of its drawbacks, the series was supposed to serve as an inspiration. It gives us an alternate story where people understand their responsibility and use it in a way real Hollywood was afraid to. They take chances and use their power to raise up others. Ryan Murphy is obviously happy with the show that resulted from his efforts. I firmly believe in the idea that if you can see it, you can become it. So I had this eureka moment of putting all this stuff together in a story where you get to rewrite the ending of so many of these legends, he said. One of the show's stars, Darren Criss, also confessed that he loved providing a beacon of hope to the viewers. "I've been really proud and happy to be a source of any kind of connectivity to other people," the actor shared. Of course, the show can be called naive, but there's wisdom in this naivety, and it is impossible to keep from smiling every time you see the story's pieces falling into place so perfectly. Or is that actually not wise? It should have shown the truth. Erasing bigotry just like that isn't actually that inspiring. In a sense, the series became nothing more but a wishful fulfillment fantasy that suggests that, if only a few people were braver, the world would turn into egalitarian heaven. Partly because of this unrealistic point of view, Hollywood has become one of Ryan Murphy's most criticized projects. On Rotten Tomatoes, for example, it has a rotten score of 48%. But how could Murphy have made it better? Well, for starters, he could have shown the events with a truthful lens that would provide a hope for better future for oppressed people. At least in this case, it had shed some light on the injustices that can be seen in Hollywood. Even today, when equal representation became a thing, and when people of different races, genders, and sexualities can count on recognition for their talents, these issues are still there. Wouldn't it be better to deal with them more realistically? What do you think about the Hollywood series? Is it brilliant, or could it be much better? Share in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and stay awesome. Thanks for watching.